Hello children, welcome to BKSS Physics Clinic. In today's video, we are going to begin a new chapter, that is new dual nature of radiation and matter. This is a very significant chapter. It deals with the dual phenomena that we are going to come across in this lecture today, that radiation not only behaves as a wave but also behaves as a matter particle, right? The same goes for matter. Again, matter is not just a lump of what? Mass, but also it will behave as a wave. Meaning, the matter and wave properties are interwoven, they coexist together. But if before we go into these details, we will understand free electrons in metals. Free electrons in metals. Children, we have done in chemical bonding what exactly are metals. We understand metals basically contain what? Metallic bond, and the electrons which are located in the outermost orbits of the atoms are very loosely bound and they are in extremely high energy state, right? There is such a high energy state that in fact they break free from the bonds, and therefore a metallic bond can be assume something like this, as you have already done. Positive ions are embedded like this, and then these loosely bound electrons are flowing freely. So, this is a conventional model of a metal. These electrons are free, and you know the electrons carry what charges? Negative charges. So, all we need to do is what? To show them a path along which they can flow. However, we know that these electrons are held bound, in fact bounded with these positive ions, and positive ions also called kernels, as you know already, you have done in chemistry. They are called what? Kernels. There is a force of attraction that is existing between the electrons and the positive ions. But remember, this force is not a very strong force. It is strong but not very strong force. If these electrons are given sufficient amount of energy, they can easily what? Escape from the atom. Now, if you go by the conventional model of the atom, this is the nucleus surrounded by all these orbits, and electrons are revolving in these orbits like this. This is how the electrons are located. Now, suppose this is third orbit, is the outermost orbit. So, this electron will be very loosely bound with the nucleus. If we supply enough energy, if we give enough energy to the electrons in the outermost orbit, they can leave the atom. If the energy supplied is large enough, they can permanently leave the surface of the metal and go into some other matter, right? So, this phenomenon of removing the electrons completely from an atom is called electronic emission or emission of electrons. So, remember children, for emission of electrons, energy needs to be absorbed by the electron, meaning delta H should be how much? Positive. So, imagine for example, this electron I want to remove, it is bound with the nucleus. So, we have already done chemistry again, that for removing an electron completely from an atom, we need to supply certain amount of energy, and this energy is called ionization energy, or in physics we will be calling it work function. It is also called ionization potential. Clear? So, emission of electrons needs energy to be supplied to the electron. Now, it depends upon in which form you can supply the energy, right? Here we will define this term work function, because we will be using it very often. Work function, it is denoted by phi or W0. Clear? What is work function? Minimum amount of energy is called work function. So, remember, the minimum amount of energy which is required for removing electron completely from an atom when the atom is in isolated state. Now why are using this term isolated? Because the atom is not under influence of other atoms. It's called what? Work function. Now work function in fact may be very small. So therefore we have a special unit for measuring work function. Unit is joule. But 1 joule is a very large amount of energy for an electron. So we have another energy unit called electron volt. Electron volt, EV. Children, electron volt is a very small amount of energy, and remember that 1 electron volt is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 joule. So I will be using this unit electron volt very often, EV. For example, if I say work function W0 is 4.5 electron volts, that means if I supply an energy equivalent of 4.5 electron volts, I will be able to remove the electron completely from a given atom, right. So this is what it means, and very important, different elements have different work functions. Important to know, different elements have different work function. Metals have low work functions, non-metals have very high work function comparably, right, because metals have a tendency to lose electrons, therefore their work function is small. Once you understand the concept of work function, remember, smaller is the work function, the more easy it is to remove the electron. So how many types of emissions we can possibly have? Let us see the types of emission of electron. Okay. So children, we understand that metals have low work function, and therefore it is easy to remove the electron from metals. Clear? So how many types of emissions we have? Types of emissions of electrons. Emissions of electrons. In how many ways electrons can be emitted? The many ways in which electron can be emitted. First one is called thermionic emission. Thermionic emission. In fact, every time I am talking about emitting electron or emission of electron, it is all about supplying energy to the electron so that it is able to break free from the nucleus. Thermionic emission. Now what is thermionic emission? In fact, when a metal is heated, it loses electrons. So emission of electrons when a metal is heated is called thermionic emission. Okay. First one. So this is due to heating of metal. Now the second one is photoelectric emission, and we are going to discuss in this chapter this topic very extensively. Photoelectric emission. This is under influence of light. Under influence of light. When light is allowed to fall on a metal, the metal loses electrons. Because light supplies energy to the electron is removed. This is called photoelectric emission. Then we have third one is called field emission. Field or cold emission. Now this is very interesting. You see, if you study Thomson's discharge tube experiment and see how electrons is emitted. In fact, what happens is, if we take a metal out here, we connect it to high tension battery, and if you apply about 50,000 volts of potential difference here across the metal, then the electrons are pulled from the metal. They are torn away from the metal, they are attracted by a very large electric force that pulls the electron out of the atom. That is called what? Field emission. So field emission is under influence of strong electric field. So when a strong electric field is applied across a metal, then electrons are removed from the metal. This is called field emission, also called cold emission, because there is no heating at all. And then the fourth one we have is called secondary emission. So second emission is in metals electrons are moving. When one electron collides with an electron, will cause the emission of the other electron. This is called what? Field emission. So influence of collision with moving electrons. So these are four basic types of emissions that we come across: thermionic emission by heating, photoelectric emission under influence of light. This is going to be discussed very well much in detail in this chapter. Field emission or cold emission is the emission of electron under influence of strong external electric field. And secondary emission is when moving electron collides with another electron, so it causes the emission of the electron. That's called field emission. So we understood these four types of emissions. So emissions of electrons have been always there from a surface. Now some of the earlier experiments to show that electrons actually emitted were carried out by Hertz, then Halavax, Lenard, Alienardi. So these three people, they studied the phenomenon of photoelectric effect or the electrons emitted by metal surface. These three people extremely studied. So we'll be separately discussing this in brief. What exactly were the concept that these people developed, and they derived the conclusion that metals can actually lose electrons. Okay, let's go through Hertz experiment. We have come across Hertz experiment in electromagnetic waves. We know the electromagnetic waves are produced by spark here, and these are electrodes of a detector. This is Hertz experiment. Hertz found that if cathode of the detector was illuminated by using what? Light or ultraviolet rays, then the reception of or the detection of electromagnetic wave became easier. This is electromagnetic wave. We have a detector here. If the cathode is illuminated here using light, then detection of electromagnetic wave by the detector becomes easier. And Hertz explained it by saying that as the electron is striking the cathode, then the cathode is actually emitting some electrons. And electron, being a charged particle, ionizes the medium around it and makes the detection of electromagnetic waves easier. So Hertz experiment concluded that when ultraviolet rays or light is allowed to fall on a metal surface, electrons are emitted by the metal surface. This is the first experiment, landmark experiment. We show that actually electrons are being emitted from a metal surface under the influence of light. Now two major experiments after that were conducted. One was conducted by Halavax, and soon after that the other was conducted by Lenard. So we'll be seeing what exactly is Halavax experiment, how Halavax was able to conclude that in fact electrons are being emitted under the influence of light. Halavax carried out a simple experiment. Let's see this. Halavax experiment. What he did? Halavax did something like this. He took a zinc sheet or a metal sheet and he bombarded it by using ultraviolet rays or just light also. He connected this plate to an electroscope, a gold plate electroscope, And you know, electroscope is a device which is used for detecting charges. These are gold leaves. And then he had a very interesting finding. Ultraviolet rays were allowed to hit this zinc metal, and he found that when light was allowed to fall in this zinc metal, then immediately a charge was detected by the electroscope. And what he found interesting was that when light was allowed to fall on the metal plate, then number one, the metal plate became positive. Metal plate become positive means if there was no charge on the metal plate, then the metal plate is getting positively charged, and that is indicated by the electroscope. Now he said, he again found that if the metal was negatively charged, then first it became neutral and again it become positively charged, right? And if it was already positively charged, light was allowed to fall, then it became more positively charged, when the positive charge increased. So all these things led to one single conclusion, that when light is being allowed to fall on the metal plate, then electrons are being emitted, right? So this was the second significant experiment by Halifax, which showed that when light is allowed to fall on a metal sheet, then electrons are being emitted. Let's write about this. More positive. So there are three conclusions that he made. When light is allowed to fall on the zinc plate or any metal plate, for example, which is connected to electroscope, if metal sheet is neutral, it develops positive charge. So if it is developing positive charge from metal means it is losing electrons, right? If metal is negatively charged, it first gets neutralized. Neutralized means what? It is throwing away its negative charge and again becomes positively charged. And if it is already positive, it becomes more positive. So what is the conclusion here? Conclusion is electrons are being emitted under the influence of light. Electrons are being emitted under the influence of incident light. So this was conclusion from Halifax experiment. Now Lenard made another significant study. We will see Lenard's experiment. What is Lenard's experiment? Lenard conducted a very consistent and simple experiment. He took an evacuated quartz tube or glass and then he fitted two metal electrodes, right? Outside he connected a battery and here he connected a sensitive microammeter. Microammeter means it can read very small currents of the order of microampere, which is 10 to the minus 6 ampere. He connected the circuit like this. Remember, between the two plates here there is no connection, it is vacuum. He found that initially there was no current in the circuit. Now what he did? He illuminated the cathode. You can see this is cathode and this is anode. When he illuminated this by using ultraviolet rays, he found that a current was established and there was a deflection in the microampere meter. We have, this is evacuated bulb. It is made up of quartz, and then there are two plates, one is cathode, the other is anode. ultraviolet rays are being allowed to fall on the cathode. He found that when light was allowed to fall on cathode, circuit was completed and there was deflection in the galvanometer. So, if the circuit was completed, that means electrons were actually travelling from cathode to the what? Anode. Otherwise, you can see there is no connection out here, circuit will not be completed. We know that electrons are carriers of electric current. So, electrons are travelling from cathode to anode, and this led him to conclude that in fact whenever light is falling on a metal surface, then the metal surface is emitting electrons. Okay. So, we will be writing about this. So, what is conclusion? Conclusion, electrons are emitted by the metal. Electrons are emitted by the metal. Now, question comes to mind. When electrons are being emitted here, then only circuit will be completed. But what is the proof that light is the sole factor responsible for emission of electron? The answer is very simple. When the source of light was removed, then there was no deflection in the galvanometer. So, this led us to a conclusion that in fact electrons are being emitted from a metallic surface under the influence of light falling on the metal. Clear? Now, once you have understood this, then we will be discussing experimental study of photoelectric effect, which is basically an extension of Lenard's experiment. We will be seeing what makes a difference to the emission of electron. Is it the frequency of the incident light which makes a difference, or whether it is the intensity of light which makes a difference? Okay, let's understand this. Experimental study of photoelectric effect. Electric effect. So, children, what is photoelectric effect actually? Emission of electrons from the surface of a metal under influence of light is called photoelectric effect, and the electrons which are emitted, they are called photoelectrons, and the current which is set up by these electrons is called photoelectric current. So, let us define first what is photoelectric effect. So, here we understood, children, photoelectric effect is the emission of electrons from metal surface when light is allowed to fall on it, and the electrons thus emitted are called what? Photoelectrons, and the current is called photoelectric current. Now, keeping these definitions in mind, we are going to discuss experimentally, we are going to study what exactly is photoelectric effect. And for experimental study, children, we will take a tube. This tube is evacuated tube. Why evacuated? So that the air present inside the tube will not interfere with the movement of electrons. Clear? And then there are two electrodes, one is this side, the other is this side. Here we are connecting a potential divider. There is a potential divider here that I am connecting, and for measuring the potential difference across these electrodes, here I am connecting a voltmeter. For measuring current, I will connect a sensitive microampere meter. Clear? Obviously, this is cathode and this is anode. The advantage of using the potential divider is such that we can change the terminals, we can also change the potential difference, right? This is why I am using a potential divider. And then what you see is that this cathode or emitter is being illuminated here using light. This is light You can write light, and for making this phenomenon more pronounced, you can use ultraviolet rays, because ultraviolet rays are what? Smaller wavelength and high frequency, they carry more energy with them. We can just write light also, write here light. So we have an evacuated tube, this is cathode, cathode is written as C, this anode we will be writing as E. Experiment setup is clear. Now what observations we make? We make many observations. The first and the foremost observation is, if frequency of the incident light is less than a certain minimum frequency, then no photoelectric emission takes place. Now this is a very important, in fact, discovery, because the emission of electrons is depending upon frequency of the light and not upon its what? Intensity, right? So if the frequency of the incident light is less than a certain minimum frequency, no photoelectrons are emitted, and if no photoelectrons will be emitted, then how much will be the photoelectric current? That will become 0, right? So what is the first point? Let's write here. Number 1, if frequency emitted, if frequency less than a certain minimum frequency, no photoelectrons are emitted, and in that case, what is the photoelectric current? It will become 0. This frequency is called threshold frequency. We will be denoting it by nu 0. Okay. Now nu 0 has different value for different metals. If it is zinc, it is one metal. If it is sodium, then it has another value. If it is magnesium, it has another value. So the threshold frequency will vary from metal to metal. It has unique value for a unique metal. Clear? Now second observation. Second observation is that if frequency of the incident light is more than threshold frequency, if frequency of the incident light is more than threshold frequency, then more is the intensity, more is the photoelectric current. So it's very interesting. Here, if frequency is less than a certain minimum frequency, then emission of electrons will not take place. It is not depending upon intensity. However, if frequency of the light is more than the threshold frequency, then there will be photoelectric current. And then says more intensity means more light energy falling, more is the photoelectric current. So here we will say photoelectric current. So the second point says photoelectric current is directly proportional to intensity of light for frequency greater than threshold frequency nu 0. So it is directly proportional. What will be the nature of the graph, children? Nature of the graph will be like this. This is current and this is intensity. This is intensity. If you plot a graph, children, then the graph will come as a straight line. It is important for you to remember. Now let us see another thing. Cathode is negative, light is falling on it and electrons are being emitted. Now where is the role of potential? The role of potential is like this. Electrons carrying negative charge. Let us see. Let us depict one model when electron has been emitted by the cathode. Now electron is being emitted by the cathode. It has nothing to do with the potential of the cathode. Now negative potential of the electron, the cathode will push the electron forward. Electrons carry what charge? Negative charge. If cathode is negative, they will push the electron forward. and the other plate anode which is positive will pull it towards itself. So, that will help in completing the circuit easier. Electrons will be more easily reaching the anode, and the moment the electron will reach the anode, the circuit will be completed and we can see it reflects in the galvanometer. But now, we will study what will happen if the cathode is made positive. Very interesting result. If we make suppose cathode positive and then light is allowed to fall on it, so what will happen? Electrons will of course be emitted, and this electron will try to move forward. Now, if I make the emitter as positive, then electron is trying to go like this, but the positive charge is pulling it backwards. It is like something like saying that you are trying to run and somebody is pulling from behind. If you have more energy, you can overcome his pull, then you can complete to run. But if you have less energy, you will try to run away, but you will not be able to overcome his pull, and therefore will stop and not be able to complete the run. Same thing. If I make this cathode positive, then light will fall, electrons will be emitted. But because the cathode is in positive polarity, it will pull it towards itself, and for a certain potential difference here, the electron will not be able to reach the other plate. And if the electron is not able to reach the other plate, the circuit will not be completed, and what will you see? That photoelectric current will become 0. So, this particular potential of the emitter is called stopping potential. We also call it cutoff potential. And remember, this cutoff potential depends upon how much energy the electron is having. Right? In other words, it will depend upon what is the frequency of the incident light. So, what did we understand? That if the other plate is positive compared to the emitter, let us call it collector. If collector is positive compared to emitter, then the electron will be able to reach what? Faster. However, if the emitter is made positive, then for a certain potential difference across the tube, the electrons will not be able to reach the other plate, and if they are not able to reach the other plate, that is collector, then photoelectric current becomes 0, and that potential difference is called what? Stopping potential. So, electron is trying to run, but it is just not having enough energy to overcome the pull of the emitter plate. Clear? So, we will say like this. For third observation, for a certain potential of emitter, photoelectric current becomes 0, and this is called stopping potential. And please remember, the stopping potential depends upon the frequency of the incident light. If I plot a graph between stopping potential and frequency, the graph will come something like this. You see, when the frequency is equal to threshold frequency, then stopping potential will be how much? 0. However, if the frequency will increase as you go up along the curve, nu is more than nu 0, right? Nu is more than nu 0. If you extend this graph backwards, then this is the stopping potential minus V0. This is the stopping potential. Clear? So, what do you find? That for a certain potential of the emitter plate, the photoelectric current becomes 0, and this potential is called stopping potential, and this is the graph. Now, here more the frequency, more is the stopping potential. Clear? And remember children, the maximum kinetic energy K max of the electron here will be equal to EV0, will be equal to EV0 at this point in time, and this stopping potential is strictly depending upon the threshold frequency. Okay, let's see this. Now children, if you have to show graphically stopping potential for different currents, this is stopping potential V naught and this is current I. If you plot a graph, then the graph comes something like this. You see here, very interesting. See, photoelectric current increases and after some time it becomes constant like this. This is called saturation current. For a given value of photoelectric current, we have shown three different stopping potentials. One is minus V01, first stopping potential, minus V02 and minus V03. What is studied earlier, basically this is a replica of the same graph. This frequency is nu 1, this frequency is nu 2 and this frequency is nu 3. For different frequencies, stopping potential is different. You can see that the third V03, the third stopping potential is maximum. That means nu 3 is more than nu 2 and nu 2 is more than nu 1. So, more the frequency for a given photoelectric current, more the frequency, more the stopping potential. It should be remembered, it should be kept in mind that more is the frequency, more the stopping potential. Clear? So, now these are some of the observations. The fourth observation is that average kinetic energy of photoelectron is independent of intensity of incident light. And only depends upon frequency. So, these are some of the interesting outcomes from the experimental observation, that average kinetic energy of electron which is emitted is independent of the intensity of the incident light, is only depending upon frequency. So, these were some of the important discoveries conclusions from the experimental study of photoelectric effect. Clear? Now, the most baffling part was why this emission is depending only upon frequency, not upon intensity, and where does the electromagnetic theory fails to explain it. Okay? So, we will be understanding this, the failure of electromagnetic theory of radiation. Okay? Once you understood it, then we will briefly study, before you go for the failures of the electromagnetic wave theory of radiation. Electromagnetic wave theory of radiation is not going to explain this phenomenon, but we will summarize the experimental findings once again, that we call laws of electromagnetic radiation, photoelectric emission, laws of photoelectric emission. What are the laws? These laws are basically the findings of the experiments. So, I will not be repeating it, I will just point out the laws that you can write down yourself. First one is that photoelectric emission will not take place if the frequency is less than a certain minimum frequency. Okay? So, here no photoelectrons are emitted when frequency of the incident light is less than certain minimum frequency, and this law is called law of frequency. Law of frequency. Then you have law of intensity, directly proportional to to intensity of light for frequency nu is more than nu 0. This is second case. Now third law says, in fact, that for a certain potential of the emitter, photoelectric current becomes 0. This is called stopping potential. So this is called law of stopping potential. Potential of the emitter, the photoelectric current becomes 0. This potential is called stopping potential, and this is called law of stopping potential. Now the fourth law says that suppose I have a metal sheet out here and light is incident, then almost instantly the electron is emitted. There is no time lag. Very important. The classical theory of electromagnetic waves fails to explain this as well. So we have theory of no time lag. It means there is no time lag between incidence of light and photoelectric emission. So these are four major laws. Now the fifth law says, this is called law of kinetic energy, that kinetic energy of photoelectron is independent of intensity and depends only upon frequency. Kinetic energy of photoelectron is independent of intensity and depends only upon frequency of light. So children, these are some of the important results from this experiment known as laws of photoelectric emission. Okay.